whatever you want. And I'm sorry if there's like chaos in the background here. It is nap time at the Millard household for a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. So just, you know, we're in it together. So I'll just start off by introducing myself. I'm Jamie Millard, Executive Director at Pollen. And it is so beautiful to see everyone's faces. I highly recommend keeping your camera on and switching back and forth to the grid view. Up on Zoom, there's a little bar kind of at the top right that looks like a grid. And in the grid view, you can see, and you can like page through the pages and pages of faces, and it's like one of my favorite things. I can't do it too much or I'll start crying, which if you were here last week, you witnessed that, and I'm gonna like not do that so that I can hold it together a bit. So again, like here we are a week later into this new normal of this unprecedented time. I don't know for you all, but time for me feels really weird right now. I have a hard time telling the difference from day to day. Time moves really fast, it moves really slow, but I'm very grounded by being able to connect with each of you every week through these gatherings. For those of you who don't know much about Pollen, maybe for some of you this is your first Pollen event, welcome. Maybe some of you this is your 20th Pollen event, and welcome back. So Pollen is a media arts nonprofit. We are dedicated to fostering empathy, encouraging human connection across difference, and inspiring meaningful action. We do that through narrative storytelling and bringing people together through events and engagements like this. During this pandemic, this health crisis, I know for everyone here, it's taken over our lives. And Pollen, as a team, we've been regularly gathering and checking in with each other and just asking each other, like, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And as a team, we are crying together, we're laughing together, we're just trying to like get through this day by day. But centering us, we've been asking ourselves, what is Pollen's role during this unprecedented time? And here's what we've decided, that we will do what we do best, which is creating space for people to process the complex issues facing our shared humanity, and then how do we hold, during times of complexity, humanity at the center. And that's what we're doing right now through these gatherings. We've halted all of our regularly scheduled programming from our editorial stories. We've canceled all of our gatherings, and we are completely focused in on trying to pivot and bring stories and care and community together around how do we nurture a community of care during this unprecedented time. So every Thursday at 2 p.m. we'll be hosting these virtual gatherings to hear from guest speakers about their personal experiences during this COVID-19 crisis, how we're dealing with increased isolation, realities of a global pandemic and health crisis, an economic crisis and uncertainty, and how each of us are learning to build a community of care, even as we are kept apart. This is all part of Pollen's Are You Okay? Oh. Hold on, Robin. Sorry, that's my 5-year-old. This is all part of our Are You Okay? Can you like hear the screaming out there? Okay. I'm just gonna be back 1 second. I gotta close this door because I cannot concentrate. Would it be a Zoom gathering if there wasn't a 5-year-old barging in? Would it be? I don't think so. So, okay, anyways, this is all part of Pollen's campaign initiative called Are You Okay? And you can follow along today with the hashtag Are You Okay? MN. And last week's gathering, everybody was using that hashtag a lot, and it went viral beyond the 200, 300 people in this room. We had people across the entire state of Minnesota chiming in, chirping in with how they are doing, and it was really powerful to read all of those stories. We hope that this initiative is a way that Pollen can not only collect stories and art and connection during these times, but it's also our small way that we're able to bring resources and funnel resources directly back into the creative community. So we're hiring writers, artists, illustrators, performers, paying every speaker and artist that's part of these gatherings. So it's a way that we're trying to like lean into economic stimulus right now as opposed to retract, which a lot of freelancers are experiencing as things have been canceled. So that's that. I really want to take some time right now to thank our sponsors and partners, the University of Minnesota, for their partnership in hosting this Zoom technology for today's gathering. They've given Pollen access to be able to host this gathering. It's a huge benefit, and we're really appreciative of that. And US Bank Foundation has actually sponsored our ability to be able to pay the speakers and performers that are part of today's gathering and some of the stories that we're writing. They just came out with their new initiative grant around $15 million in general operating support for nonprofits. So I highly recommend you look into that. That's huge support coming out of US Bank Foundation for our community at this time. Pollen in general is also supported by partners like Bush Foundation, Team Dynamics, Ide Bailey, and Clifton Larson Allen are some of our ongoing sponsors and partners. So thank you to all of them. And with that, I would love to introduce our friend and just community icon, musical performer, Gaelynn Lea. Gaelynn Lea won NPR's Music's Tiny Desk concert in 2016, and she's been on the road ever since, playing her unique mix of haunting original songs and traditional fiddle tunes. In addition to performing and recording, Gaelynn also does speaking engagements about disability rights, finding inner freedom, and accessibility in the arts. She's a past performer and speaker for Pollen through our Work Redux program, and we cannot be more grateful to have you here. Your ability, Gaelynn, to open up our souls and vulnerability is needed now more than ever, and I can't wait to hear from you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me today. It's really cool to be here virtually, and I'm pumped that you guys are stepping up so dramatically in this time in a really positive way. So thank you to Pollen. I guess before I play my tune, I just wanted to, like Thomas said, I could maybe just share a few words about how we're doing. And basically, my goal is to still perform virtually as much as I can, like a couple times a week is kind of the plan. And also just try to think about, you know, the difference between if you go into this with hope versus despair, and just try to remain on the side of hope, because it changes your little daily actions every day, to be thinking, well, what can we learn from this, or what can we make better in society in the long run because of this, and just trying to focus on the hope aspect as much as possible. And then also trying to be compassionate with myself, because it is really weird all of a sudden being like, oh, there's no structure at all anymore. And so trying to not put so many expectations on myself at the same time. So it's an interesting time, and if I could share one other thing, it would just be, please, as I think you all are doing, Minnesota seems to be taking it seriously, but just stay home, because the people with disabilities are really vulnerable to COVID, and it's just the less we can spread it, the more people that don't have to get it, and it's just a big issue. So I'm going to play a song that I wrote. It's actually the very first song I ever wrote, called Grace and a Tender Hand, and I think it fits for the moment we're all going through. So here we go. I don't know the words of the song I want to sing you. I don't have a name for why they want to bring you. And I don't understand what you've seen or all that you have done. But if I could bring you peace today, my battle would be won. You're weighted down with worry, you doubt what you are worth. You question if you'll ever know your place upon the earth. But if you saw what I see, this perfect person standing next to me, if you could kindly let yourself be, your battle would be won. We don't know the outcome, how the story will unfold. We only have a moment, and it is not ours to hold. A place to fall, a time to land. We grow by grace and a tender hand. The beauty of this hidden plan is our battle has been won. The beauty of this hidden plan is our battle has been won. Thank you for having me.
Gosh, oh, can we all do a this thing? Since we can't all applaud, we can show Gaelynn. I mean, I think that you just like cracked open a crater in our souls. That was just so beautiful and so needed. Thank you for sharing, and for also your perspective too about like remaining in our homes and staying home is part of our collective care that we can provide to people who really need to be protected right now. So thank you for sharing that. We will all, I promise, do our part and stay in our home to keep you safe. Thank you for sharing, Gaelynn. You're so talented. Again, in this chat, people support Gaelynn, support our performers. We shared her Patreon link up here at the top. You can see her Twitter handles. Here's another link to another live concert. Sean just shared that in the chat. Support. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to turn over the conversation to Pollen's design director, Melanie Walby, who is going to be the moderator and question asker of our incredible speakers for today. So with that, Melanie, take it away.
I had to unmute myself. Oh, now it's my turn to cry. Yay. I have been really looking forward to this conversation. It's very close to my heart. My husband is a brewer, and he's worked at Northern Brewer Summit, Indeed, Surly, Sisyphus Prize, and Fair State. So the service industry is definitely our extended family, and watching what's been happening to all of our friends has just been really hard. And I just have been kind of feeling this, like, I don't know what to do to show up for this service industry right now. So I'm really excited to hear from these brilliant people today that are going to share with us what they're going through right now. And we'll get started. So the first person I'm excited to introduce is Alejandra. Alejandra is of Mexican and Chilean descent. She is a queer, light-skinned immigrant storyteller, body worker, and arts organizer. Her bio is so much fun. I'm excited to read this. A healing justice practitioner. She grew up in the theater during the aftershock of a dictatorship that was overthrown by a nonviolent revolution. She centers her studies in arts, leadership, and the human body at every scale. Over the last 2 decades, Alejandra has performed, directed, and/or choreographed work at many venues in the Twin Cities, Minnesota region, and is now at home with Indigenous Roots Cultural Collective. Her early formative artist years included international contemporary ballet tours, modern dance house showings, and performance art installations in Austin and Houston, Texas. She is now an artist, community developer, part-time puppeteer, and budding filmmaker in occupied Dakota land, St. Paul, Minnesota. She works with artists through bodywork and training at United Body Workers, an artist studio, a global somatics lab. Please give it up for Alejandra.
Hi. My eyeballs are still a little wet.
Oh, all of our eyeballs are going to be wet.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for this moment. I feel kind of up in my upper body, and so I'm gonna just do a little sounding, and I invite everybody from wherever you are to just feel the weight of your pelvis. Whether you're standing or whether you are sitting. See if you can tune in to the weight of your organs, these wonderful water balloon-like weighted systems. And let's just do a little bit of sounding and remember that vibration that through the internet Gaelynn brought to us. And let's just see if we can take a deep breath in to our pelvis. And just make a nice slow guttural deep in the belly. Just see so you can try to get deep, 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 deep in your belly.
Oh, wonderful.
Now, do I just dive into the questions?
I can start us off. Thank you so much for that. I definitely needed that. We're starting off just by asking everybody, are you okay?
Yes, short answer. I had the opportunity of learning from a couple of days ago of learning a little bit more about myself through a Mayan spiritual leader and student. And the reason why I added this to Am I Okay is because one of the things about the day that I was born is the gift of the totality of a duality. And so I'm also a Capricorn, if that helps in regards to what's that?
Oh, I said me too.
Excellent. So it was just recently, because I'm a goal-oriented mountain. I grew up around the Andes, surrounded by the Andes. The goatness of my sign and of the meaning of my Nawat, the meaning of this kind of duality of the rising, had been my focus for the first 35 years of my life. And in the last few years, I feel like I've been able to embrace the fishy tail, right? The depths of the ocean and the darkness that is there. And so I am working on finding that balance of being okay and being with gratitude. What? Who's calling me? I cannot talk to you. I love you. Marianne from Indigenous Roots.
Oh, yay, we love you.
Yes. So much love to baby to be. So I am okay. I'm grateful. I feel so honored and privileged to have a roof over my head, to have enough food, to have running water, to have access to a dry washer and dryer. There's all of these things that seem really supportive of staying healthy. And so I'm aware, I'm feeling, the space of that privilege, while I also sit with, in solidarity with those that do not have that.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing I know that it's been really helpful for me personally, just hearing from everybody on, we all go to what we know how to do. And for a lot of us, that's our practice, our work, our day-to-day work. So how, can you speak to, how your practice is informing taking care of yourself right now?
Yeah. So I just came back from Chile, from Santiago. My wife was able to join me for the first time since we've been together for 9 years. And so got to visit family. And coming back into the country was wild. Coming back to this country was really wild, to cross the border. And so for the first week and a half, I am highly motivated by community, by the collective. And so I was really outward, how can we organize ourselves? How do we get onto virtual platforms? How do we provide the moments of pause, of spaciousness, of solidarity that we can with each other? And somehow engage and survive in this capitalist system? How can we honor this moment? And so anyway, so how I acknowledge, I'm so grateful for time and just to be able to wake up another day and to feel the exhaustion of the reaching out and of the caring for, and just again, really grateful for this pause that as I'm saddened that I had to cancel a whole bunch of clients. I am grateful now to be able to turn kind of to breath and to the circularness of that. And so I am, as I'm preparing to figure out how to support my clients from afar, it's given me an awesome opportunity to do my own self audits of my own energetic being, physical being, emotional being, mental, spiritual, and kind of this other thing about how we are all in this interconnected fabric of the universe, and how so trying to check in with those, on a weekly basis, and demanding less productivity in regards to my everyday.
Yeah, for sure. It is a collective breath that we all have access to right now. It's interesting. Can you speak a little bit more just to healing justice and the practices that that you share with clients, and what kind of ways that we can support you in that work right now in this very challenging time?
Our bodies being so central in this moment of the pandemic, are giving us an opportunity to embody what it might be to be a part of a healing justice movement, I believe. And so, I mentioned organizing with other practitioners online and figuring out kind of clearing the clutter to dream the dream and level up technically. So, in regards to how to, it's difficult it's difficult, I guess, to answer the question, how to support. I feel like, I'm super excited. One of the things that I had, we closed down the People's Movement Center last year, 2020 time, which was a healing justice practice space, an experiment that we co-led for 5 years. And I was really, really excited. I've been part-time organizer, part-time. I've had multiple jobs for a lot of years, and now coming into my 40s, I'm realizing that I need to narrow in. And so I was gonna, the plan was to go abroad, to have my wife meet my family and have this amazing love affair, and come back and really dedicate myself to my private practice. realizing that that my public persona, that I wanted to be more specific about how I showed up as a storyteller, as a writer, as a creator of theater, how I contributed to the culture that I felt would support us in a healing justice movement.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm super excited for this conversation to, maybe there's I don't know, like maybe there's a class that folks want to come to that I'll be able to offer soon, either online with others, or in person, however we figure out when to come back to each other on a physical plane. I show up with a tool belt. The way that I talk about in my practice, I show up with a tool belt, and depending on what language you speak, either literally kind of the English or the body language that comes up, however the desire and the needs of the health needs of the body is kind of how I lead my sessions. And so I'm excited to use all my tools, and so I think that, again, being able to talk about it is one thing, and then just being able to do it.
Totally. I think that was a great answer. I'm so excited. I can already see people making comments. So we'll get back to that after the next two speakers, but I want to take this opportunity to introduce the next person. So we're going to hear from Dana Thompson. Dana Thompson is the co-owner and COO of the Sous Chef, the executive director of North American Traditional Indigenous Food Systems. So as co-owner of the company, the Sous Chef, Dana Thompson, has been working within the food movement for the past 6 years. And within that time, she has traveled extensively throughout tribal communities, engaging in critical ways to improve food access. In 2018, she jointly founded the nonprofit North American Traditional Indigenous Food Systems, for which she is the executive director. And through this entity, she'll focus her expertise on addressing and treating ancestral trauma through decolonized perspectives of honoring and leveraging Indigenous wisdom. So please welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great. I'm going to get up real quick and shut my door. I'll be right back.
I just want to give a shout out to Gaelynn. I'm also from Duluth and a huge fan. A little Twitter-pated right now, just going to say.
My husband just got home and he does not know that there are 200 people on my screen, so I shut the door. I was like, all right, it's so great to have you. I am so excited to talk with you today, and we'll start off just by asking the theme of the campaign, which is, are you okay?
Yeah, it's a really good question because, we are in Minneapolis, and the food economy has really just been mowed down. And it's incredibly profound, not only for our own staff, but for so many of our friends and so many of the people that we respect have just been kind of brought to a standstill in a way. And it's just really hard to kind of think about how much that's happening all across our country and the world itself. It's just been really, really hard. Good days and bad days. The day before yesterday was okay. Yesterday was really bad. So we're just trying to stay, in our bodies here and giving each other love and checking in with our staff and our friends. And this is a really cool way to connect with the community here too. So thank you.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my husband works in the service industry. So we're watching a lot of our really close friends go through a lot of different things. And one of the things that I've just been asking my friends who are bartenders and servers is, what does the service industry need from the community right now? And everyone's talking about immediate things that can be done, like shout out to Fair State Brewery, where my husband works. If you can get crawlers and they'll let you order at the door and all these things. But one thing that came up was more about the businesses themselves getting a freeze on their bills and, rent freezes so that people have somewhere to go back to. And there was a question of, things at the capital level. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what are all the different ways that we can support the service industry right now and with what's going on.
I don't have a short answer to that because it varies so much, business by business. I kind of think that it's, people in the food industry don't really have an off button a lot of the time. They just run and run and run. They push themselves so hard. And my focus through our organization is about how that affects your mental health. And, I kind of think that we're in the middle of this kind of crazy trust exercise where everyone is forced to just drop into their bodies, spend time, with their people or alone in isolation, and just really understand kind of the gifts that we do have already right now. And the fact that we don't necessarily have to get stuck in this capitalistic colonial perspective of just running and running and running. And so, one thing that's been really striking me is the fact that the Chinese symbol for crisis is one character that says danger and one that says opportunity.
Wow.
And those two together are what the definition of that means in this Chinese character. And that's what I keep kind of circling back to, that it's a chance for us to really understand, make decisions about kind of how we want to spend our life and what our priorities are and what's important to us.
Yeah, I know one specific question for you too is like, what should we be eating right now? Like, how is that taking care of ourselves?
Oh man, yeah. Well, Sean and I have been having so much fun in the kitchen, because we get a lot of gifts. When we go to tribal communities, people give us, different things. And it's been really fun to watch him experimenting and having time to just experiment with these little bags of, ancient corns or herbs that are, packed with flavonoids and antioxidants, and not just using them for tea necessarily, but putting them in soups or in a sauce. And, I would just tell everybody that getting outside right now is such a great thing. Touching the trees and getting close to them. And trees emit this thing called phytoncides, which are a really great chemical that naturally brings out the oxytocin and decreases cortisol levels in human beings. And I think everyone's anxiety is kind of through the roof, obviously. And so just getting sunlight and interacting with those trees is the most important thing for me right now. And all year round in Minnesota, we can grab a couple snips of the cedar boughs and bring those back to your own home, throw them in a little pan of water, simmer it for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then add a little bit of maple to it. And what you have is packed with vitamin C, it's packed with antioxidants and flavonoids and things that really build your immune system. So, that's around all year round here in Minnesota. So we're pretty lucky. But just the act of gathering that, I think, is really deeply healing.
So important. I had actually heard that was something that you teach, and it inspired me to work outside this morning. And it's a little chilly, so I was bundled up. I had my hat and my winter coat, but I was preparing for this by being outside. Thank you so much. We actually are ready to move on to Tomme, but I can already see great comments coming in, so we'll circle back for the Q&A. Our next speaker is Tomme Beevas of Pimento Kitchen. As founder and chief strategic officer of Pimento Jamaican Kitchen, Tomme leads the company's growth strategy to become the top provider of authentic Jamaican food experiences globally. Prior to launching Pimento, Tomme served as a corporate executive responsible for Cargill's global community involvement programs, including raising more than $100 million for United Way and leading volunteer programs across 350 communities on 6 continents. A recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award from President Bill Clinton, Tomme has also lived in Washington, D.C., where he managed the same award for President George W. Bush and held posts at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Tomme holds political science and economics undergraduate degrees from the University of South Florida and a master's in business administration from the University of Minnesota. He currently lives in Minneapolis. He lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with his wife, Bush Fellow Dara, founder and chief strategic officer of Wise Inc. Creative Publishing, and their new, or well, not new anymore, their daughter, Genesis. Please welcome Tomme.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me, Melanie and crew, and thank you so much for making this available for all of us. And Dara, funny enough, she wanted to dial in. So we have two separate levels, and so she's upstairs watching because she was just so curious to learn more about what everyone was going through. So she decided to dial in on her own.
That's awesome. Very cool. So we'll just get started out by asking you the question of the campaign.
Zoom has stopped working on my end.
Oh, we can still hear you.
Okay, good. We're good?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, go ahead now.
Are you okay? We're asking everybody the question of the campaign. So we'll start out saying, are you okay? I wonder, I think he might not be able to. Are you able to hear me, Tomme?
It looks like Tomme may have frozen himself, Melanie.
But it's not easy. I literally don't know what's next for us. All we can do is keep our heads high and just keep going. You know, we have multiple locations, and we have so many families who are relying on this for everything, for their everything. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, we've talked a little, just you and I personally, talking about this, but it is interesting to think into like, what can we do to support? And in true Pollen, you know, tradition, our brains are always like, tip this conversation into action. Like, what is there that can be done? And so I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what have been the most amazing ways that people have shown up, and what would you like to continue to see? Both with consumers, but also like legislation, like what's happening like higher up in positions of power.
First and foremost, Minnesotans, man, I just love them. Like before we even knew what was going on, before there were any closures, we had people reaching out on Facebook, on Twitter, by email, every which way to try to get a hold of us. And not just to my wife as well, to people who might know me, to be like, hey, what's going on? What do we need to do to support? So thank you to everyone who reached out, and keep doing that, not just but to everyone. You know, we have to just keep reaching out, keep checking in. And even in these times when we're all quarantined and all of that, now is when we need our connections more than ever before. And so definitely take advantage of it and reach out to everyone, reach out to friends. I mean, I've spoken to my mom more this past 2 weeks than I have in a long time. You know, and it's just the constant connection that we need for each other. So let's keep supporting each other. In terms of what one can do, there's still many restaurants that are operating right now, albeit that's for those who were able to switch over to the takeout model and or the pickup model. So we know that World Street Kitchen is doing it, Kwang's is doing it, Pancho Villa, and several others are doing it. So let's keep supporting those, whether through ordering takeout or ordering through Bite Squad, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Amazon, DoorDash. There's so many groups out there now who are doing the deliveries. We still need the support because we're still operating. So Jamaicans have a saying that every mickle makes a muckle. So every cent counts is essentially it. And so right now, every dollar we get in, we're just so grateful for it. And so we ask people to continue supporting all restaurants out there through the deliveries and the takeouts. But there's also things that one can do, like buying gift cards for future use. Call the companies and see if you can schedule catering for the future, even though we don't know when we'll be able to serve again. You know, but even helping in those regards would be helpful. We've created a GoFundMe campaign to help raise funds, not just for the general operation, but also to help our employees. So that's definitely one thing that we're doing. As it relates to the policymakers, they for the most part demonstrated that they're stepping up. We know that folks like META MCCD. We have to give shout out to like even Main Street Alliance, who are lobbying to ensure that small businesses, Main Street gets supported as well as Wall Street. So they've been doing a great job in that. They've also been making available resources for companies to access capital right away. So for example, right now, Deed has its application forms out there. Get the word out to every small business you can imagine. Get them to apply for these funds. Deed has up to $35,000 that is available just for capital expenses and payroll, rent, and those types of things. So resources are out there. Then when you add to that, one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is even their insurance policies. A lot of insurance policies actually do have clauses to support this. So we know that because the government has formally shut it down, a lot of insurance policies actually do cover government shutdowns like this. Communicable diseases, a lot of policies do have that in place. And so we're just trying our best to share the information with other restaurant owners and with the general public, so they so they can find ways to be sustainable throughout this process. It's a lot, but but people have been stepping up, both from the general populace to our policymakers have been stepping up, and that's very encouraging.
That's incredible. That is such a great list of things that people are doing, and it's really inspiring to hear. We're going to move on to another question. If Julie, do you want to read it?
Dana Nelson is on tap.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question from Andy for both Tomme and Alejandra. How is the experience, your family in Chile and Jamaica, how was that different than what you or we're experiencing here in the US?
I can go then. Funny enough, very good question, Andy. I think one of the things that, as a Jamaican, this has opened up for me is we've experienced so much through just living in Jamaica. Like, what do you do if you don't have water? You figure out how to go to the local wherever, get water, boil it to survive. So the resilience that comes with being from a developing country has certainly given me a bit more of comfort in knowing, we'll make it through it. We just have to think creatively. Even when I'm thinking about food, when I went to the grocery store, not just because I'm a chef, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can buy this to make that in case of that emergency.
Yeah.
Go buy those long life milk and store them. And it's because, again, we've been through the hurricanes where you have no water, no power, no food for weeks to months on end. And so that has really helped me to be a bit more resilient in my thinking. But in no way is it easier on my family or me than it is for anyone else, because we're all going through it, and it's tough. It's tough. Alejandra, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I hear you on the creativity and the resilience that I think that other countries, in Chile in particular, Chile right now is in a particular what they're calling a social explosion. And so when I was there, they have been demonstrating since last October, November. 1 million people come out to the streets. There's pop-up hospitals because the government's initial response was one of repression, and there are a lot of unfortunate rubber bullets to the eyes, and so there's these pop-up hospitals in the parks. So the coronavirus awareness, and also I was in Santiago, which is the most populated, and so in the metro, all kind of squished together, which was part of my initial self-quarantining when I got back into the country, and the science of it all started to kind of come out. So the conversation there was really, talking about the healing justice was really focused on the justice component. I went to a demonstration that was completely nonviolent, completely just people gathering, and experienced my first tear gas. And so, in regards to, again, exposure, I'm kind of nearing the end of the 15 days that we'll see in regards to showing symptoms, but treating it as if I am carrying something. So again, country experience, but then also there's this thing about timing, right? Every day is telling us kind of we're learning, and also the siphoning of information, I think to the internet also is coming more broadly, and less from a censored filter place.
Thank you so much. I'm going to actually switch us back to our executive director, Jamie, to say a couple more words and move us into the next section.
I was not ready for that. I was taking a video for the Instagram, but I can quickly pivot. Okay. So I can just hear the optimism and the devastation in all of the speaker's voice, and my brain cannot quite reconcile those two emotions existing side by side. But I'm just so grateful to all of you, Tomme, Alejandra, Dana, Gaelynn. Thank you for sharing your experiences and for holding the complexity of that. Before everyone starts pinging out, I just have a few little wrapping thoughts here for us, and then one more speaker that we're going to hear from. And this next speaker, it's an important, there's so much that we can do individually right now. There's structural systems are failing us right now, and some of the comments that I really liked reading about was hoping that we don't go back to normal after this, that this is an opportunity to really change some underlying structural issues that's wrong with capitalism and our colonialized mindset and the way that society has been rigged for us. And in the meantime, though, there are some really vulnerable people and types of career that are falling through the cracks. And I'd love to invite Katie Lea to speak, who's the development director of Springboard for the Arts, to share about something that we can do individually right now that can make a really big difference. And Tomme had a lot of great resources to share too. I also recommend us support financially through all the links that were shared in the chat. The healing work, musical performance work, artists, creatives, the food systems in whichever ways we can. And keep in mind that normally Pollen events have a $35 ticket price, and we're hosting all of these gatherings for free, and we will keep them free. But in lieu of a usual ticket price, let's see whatever we can do to collectively as individuals share our support. So with that, Katie, I would love to hand it over to you and hear a little bit more about the Emergency Relief Fund for artists that Springboard is doing. It's incredible, and I can't wait to hear from you a little bit, if you have a minute or so about that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Lea. Thank you to Jamie and the rest of the Pollen team for inviting me to be here, and thank you so much to all the presenters today for sharing your wisdom and your truths. It's been really humbling to be here. This is my first Pollen event. So I'm an artist. I am a performer and a writer who lived in the Twin Cities for many years and actually left for a short time, worked for the ACLU in the Southwest and the Deep South, and then just came back recently. And I work as a development director at Springboard for the Arts. So when it became clear that this crisis was going to impact us so profoundly as a community, Springboard was able to scale up a program that we already had actually as part of our regular programming. And we had something called the Emergency Relief Fund. It was something that we'd always used for artists who encountered sudden unanticipated crises, and they could apply for $500 of immediate relief. And on Friday, March 13th, we opened up that fund for any artist in Minnesota to apply for an instant $500 relief that can cover any lost income due to cancellations having to do with COVID-19 precautionary measures. And since then, we have seen nearly 600 applications. So in answer to the question, am I okay? I am feeling very, very grateful to be able to be in the position where I can feel like I'm being of service. It's been, like Jamie was saying, a real wake-up call, I feel like. It's just reinforced how vulnerable many people are, especially artists and independent contractors in this capitalistic society. And so we have this fund. We encourage you, if you're an artist, to please apply. The only restriction is that it's for Minnesota artists. And also, we would love it if you would help us raise money. And even if you cannot give, if you could share the information with your networks, or perhaps with people who you know who may not know about the fund itself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. I donated to the fund. I encourage everyone to donate. I've heard from my artist friends who are getting the grants, and it's like immediate support. You're getting those checks out, and it is really appreciated. Okay, so with that, just like one more thing before we close is that we will be sending a follow-up email to everyone on this with a recording of the video, with all of the links of everyone you can support, how you can promote and share all of that support with all of the resources that were shared. So we'll be sending that out. Next Thursday, we have another gathering with such another round of great speakers. It's again Thursday at 2 p.m. And we have a new story published up on Pollen's site. It just published right before this gathering started. So you can go find that. We'll share a link to that here in the chat too, but it's by Gaelynn Lea about her experience right now, especially as a mother, and how she's talking and going through this coronavirus with her children. And if you want a good cry, read that. It's so healing. Gaelynn is just like one of the hearts of our soul as a community, and we're so grateful for that story. And just to like close out, I wonder if we could do something together. I've been ending my videos like this, and I would love to just see like hundreds of on my screen of this, but maybe we could all just like make a heart and tell each other that we love one another and that we are here for each other. So let's do our hearts. And with that, I will see you all next week. You can stay around and chat. Thank you so much.